Hello and welcome back to Divine Dialogue. I am your host, Dahlia Rose, and I'm coming back just to drop in and talk a little bit about more spirituality, more everyday stuff, and where all that blends. We're here to expand your minds, give you new things to consider and think about. And I am here with a wonderful guest to help me do that today. And so, before we get too deep into what our show is going to be today, I want to let you guys know we are here to talk a little bit about channeling. I love bringing guests on here to share their experiences. I have my own. And so, as we navigate this journey, if you are following in the comment section, definitely drop some lines. I'll see those comments afterward. And be sure to hit like, subscribe, or however you want to follow us beyond this moment if you find that value. So, if this is your first time joining, my name is Dahlia Rose. I am the founder of the Conduit School, and I serve my community as a healer, a teacher, and a conduit for high vibrational energies. I do this by guiding my students with spiritual development, energy work, meditation, crystal usage, various services, and counseling. I am also a cosmic weaver and an oracle. And so what that basically means is that I pull together ancient healing practices, modalities, and I do this because I want us to reconnect with our bodies, engage with healing in a new way. And I would love for people to feel empowered to be more than they ever thought possible. And again, like I said in the beginning, I am not here alone. I'm here with somebody I met by chance, but I'm so glad I did. So, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. You can call me Ke. In the universal internet world, I go by Digital Shaman. So what is a digital shaman? Let's just take care of that straight up, straight away. And I do apologize. As soon as you hear record, they're going full forth with the lawnmowers outside. So hopefully the noise is not too distracting. Um, okay. Either way, a digital shaman. So what I do is I combine the intersection of technology and spirituality. And by practice, that could be simply just trying a tarot app, vice a physical tarot deck, or integrating the both. I know it's debatable if we're living in the age of Aquarius, but what we can't deny is that we are living in information and technology era. So I like to be able to show the different tools and how people can have a hybrid spiritual practice using their iPads, Mac, and yes, their Android devices. Alternatively, got to account for all the different robots out there. Alternatively, I also live in the DC metro area and do spiritual teachings at like different tea shops, the library. Just kind of, like you said, there's a real need. A lot of people are awakening. So to really just kind of hit, I don't want to say the beginners because we all can go into anything with a beginner's mind, but really just
Yeah.
like the essentials, like we said, energy, meditation, astrology, tarot, just to kind of help people get on the path and figure out what their own healing looks like.
And,
So that's a
you know,
little bit about me. Yep.
yeah, your name is perfect. Key, you are the key to, plugging into new ways of being. And your approach with technology is exactly how most spiritual practices were developed. What is available, what's around me, what is my community using, and then working with those tools to make our lives better, to make connection and spirituality more accessible. I think that that's such a beautiful way of being and a beautiful gift to offer people in the world, because I think in the beginning stages of uh, like kind of getting away from our union with the land and with nature,
Mhm.
some sort of elite, higher, what do I want to say? Like not higher, but exclusive things, exclusive energy started to be turned up where you couldn't access spirituality unless you had a certain amount of money or, you knew people, and things became very fragmented. And I believe that based on what you are doing and what you described, you are the key to many doors. So this
Yeah,
is
we are
wonderful.
bringing back those Akashic records, Kindle book style.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You know, if you look at just the evolution of human society in the industrial ages, the mechanical ages, and like it's something simple. Tradition traveled orally. Then we had, scratchings, papyrus, grimoires, and now we can tap a reading on using notes. So definitely, I think it's always a blending of the two, the traditional spirituality and recognizing, that we do live in a modern world. And I do find that, like, the best example that I like for I use the phrase digital divination
yeah,
is like the tarot apps keep track. We all say, "Oh, I got these stalker cards. I got these stalker cards." Or I do find people who are very meticulous, like into bullet journals or however ways they want to track, their readings and their card pulls. And I'm like, have you tried an app? Because that's what computers are here to do. They're kind of here to help us think a little bit. I know AI, and that's anything. You got to find the lighter sides of technology, and
sure.
that's what I'm also here to help advocate. Well, not everything is social media and blue light burnout. I say, if anything, how quickly can you tap into the divine, running throughout your house to find your tarot deck, or boom, making a quick pull instantly. So,
Right.
always on, but in a different way, in a
And
healthier way. Yeah.
exactly, and to be able to let go of that precision and that need to decorate, the bullet journaling is some serious stuff, and I admire people that are so committed to that.
Yeah.
And how much freer would your intuition and your mind be to
There you go.
receive if, like you're saying, you went the digital route? And I listen, I was a little bit like with the technology, and I don't yet have a digital tarot deck, but I will tell you one of my favorite ways to give readings is to speech to text. So I'm in the middle of
Mm.
flow, I'm looking at my cards, and I'm just speaking, and the phone's picking it up. It's like the best assistant in the world. And then all I have to do is go back and, edit a little bit. But I find that the information that comes forward in flow goes from this much to this much because I'm not, having to explain or.
You're losing past the physical limitations of how quickly you can move with the pen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely. So technology is a wonderful thing. And speaking of technology, in my opinion, channeling is a form of technology.
Really?
So I mean, technology channeling predates writing, and like I really do feel like it falls in that form of verbal exchange, and the way that it was handed down. And channeling is something that touched every single culture. I mean, there was not a culture that didn't have a person who was either a shaman, a medicine person, or an oracle, or a bridge of some kind to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
divine, that they would let things flow through them in one way or another, used for one form or another. And so channeling has been a diverse technology. Um,
Yeah. And I love how you keep using the term technology. It doesn't all have to be, electrical switches and things turned
no,
on. I tell people, like, let us not forget that, what is the name of what covers our phones, our Apple Watches, excuse me, LCD, which is liquid quartz display.
yes.
Quartz is, like you said, that is the master battery connected to the higher computer,
Oh
the real
yeah.
source of intelligence. Yeah. And I think, I'm not going to sit here and be an expert on, all indigenous cultures, but definitely I think the dream world was always kind of an acceptable way of getting messages. But like you said, when ceremony became applied and when you're intentionally getting the human body prepared to receive, you know, absolutely, that is the original challenging. And then to bring it into the modern era, what I was going to say, I'm still figuring out, because that's the thing about tech. It does move quick, but adding in Chat GPT,
Hmm.
AI, I think that's actually not to go off the rails, but I feel like now we're getting into Star Trek world about sentient beings and computers and AI. And I think it does need to be studied because it's a part of, are we moving towards Jetsons, or, what are we doing here? But, I played around with Chat GPT or at AI for readings, and it's still kind of new. But I would just be wondered, excuse me, it would be a great experiment to, like you said, be pulling cars, to be channeling in, then to pull in AI or whatever. Okay, what kind of master scroll are we going to come up with? But that's the era that we're living in. And like I said, it really does go back to training. You got, just like with anything, you pick up a deck, you pick up a pendulum, any type of tool. What are you going to do with it? Ultimately reflects back to you.
I think it's really important, the journey that you're offering here, because we don't, one of the things that I look at when it comes to Chat GPT and all the different AI bots is the need to move with it, to evolve with it. I think uh, a potential error in our interactions with these things is to think that they are going to, take over and do things for us instead of moving in harmony and being an opportunity for us to grow and evolve alongside. And when we bring in technology and channeling, and just for like definition purposes, right? When we're, at least in the context of this conversation, channeling, we're talking more about like trance states where you might use the technology to record or to like I was saying, speech to text. We're talking about bringing through information, but channeling also takes on different forms. Like if you are passing energy through your hands and it's coming through you and into another person or into a scenario, a crystal, a grid, or something like that, you are channeling as well. And so when you talked about bringing together Chat GPT and, what can we do with technology or with channeling, one of the things that came to my mind was a lot of times when channeling takes place, for me, if I'm channeling for another person or channeling for myself, there may be instructions like, you need to work on healing this, or um, maybe this will be a nice additive to your diet so that you can cleanse your body or something like that. And where something like Chat GPT may be useful is, okay, well, I've been given this guidance, but how do I apply it? Because it seems that those AI bots are great at generating ideas. And so, I might get some information about trying to work on forgiveness. Well, if I throw that into Chat GPT, it's going to scan the internet faster than I can if I'm just a layperson who doesn't have forgiveness practices. And it's going to start spitting out ideas that I can do or implement in my healing journey. And that's kind of what comes to mind for me when I think about combining technology and spirituality, is the freedom to say, okay, of these 6 ideas that Chat GPT was able to pull together, this is what resonates with me, and then going from there.
Yeah, I think I love what you said earlier about like enhancements, because sometimes, when you talk about channeled messages, at least this is from my experience, is it's not going to make sense until, like, you literally just getting the syntax of words. And I was thinking, like, when you were talking, I was like, imagine putting something like that in ChatGPT. Now you will get like, okay, these are, I'm just making English words, but it's not going to be, or could it be really helpful, helping you again tap into what is spirit trying to tell me? So there's definitely limitations, but I do feel like, depending on the nature of the message, like I said, it can be helped to flesh and add on. But and I definitely still would even caution, Chat GPT. And one thing too that I try to warn folks, whether you're using the apps or not, not to go on cybersecurity, but we're still working with privacy data. When you pull charts,
Oh yeah.
grabbing SSNs. But I just say all that to say back to, I really just want, everyone to have a takeaway of, we still do need to be very careful when we're using our tools, but they definitely
100.
need to, enhance and, hopefully allow us, the human part of this experience, to continue to step deeper into our own teachings and learnings. Yeah, for sure.
So, what
Yeah.
I would love to know, because channeling as an experience is different for everybody. Do you like what's your where do you go with channeling? What are your experiences with it?
Wow. So first of all, for the longest, I never really knew what this written gift was. I'm trying to think. I think it had to be maybe in parallel with my actual spiritual awakening, like reading the law of yeah, that's in Jerry Hicks' Law of Attraction, which I feel like that's one of the most famous spiritual book when they channel the spirit of Abraham. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I watched YouTube channels. It just really takes the time to figure out, well, who are these people they're talking to? And I'm like, oh, Jesus came back in '08. Jesus came back in 2018. So it took me a while to, I guess, get a vocabulary for what I was experiencing. Really going back to, like, I had to think about it. I remember in third grade, they were teaching us letter writing, and it's just crazy how memories sit with you and shape you. They were
Yeah.
teaching us letter writing, and I remember, I had the syntax down, to, from, and the address, all that part, but I had put a little message in my letter, which looking back, I think it was a little poem or sonnet or something to my classmate. And I remember my teacher had made me erase it. She said, "Oh, you can't do that." I'm like, "You're writing a formal letter." And I'm like, "Okay." I didn't think anything about it, but looking back, I think at least for me, the memories where creativity is denied or, doors get shut, it just really
Mm.
shapes you. So that was one example. And then just out of nowhere, like in high school, my last year of high school, I started kind of writing more poetry raps with my friend, but really would weave it all together in my 20s, having no other than dabbling with astrology, just really whatever, living a 20 young 20 girl's life. I started just writing poems. I mean, it was crazy. They'd be you come to my house on the back of envelopes, they would just flow out of me. And all my friends were like, "Oh, cool, you're a poet." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm a poet, I didn't know it." So that happened for the longest, but really what tied it all together as this is a gift was one, then having the vocabulary to recognize, oh, not everyone can just tap in the flow. And I don't know. I guess I would liken it to the movie going on to in my head, just getting that out. But sometimes, not to make it dramatized like on TV, but it is some almost like, oh, I just have to get this information out. And in time, you will know this is not me speaking. This is someone using me, as a conduit. So like I said, it took time to kind of really recognize, oh, so I can get information and it's outside of the realm of poetry. But then
Right.
also we're really stitched it all together. Cause I warn people over and over, and I'm glad that we're dialoguing like this so that people are not in the corner thinking that they're crazy. Cause you got to hear from no offense, you got to hear from other folks, and at least really helps. So my cousin, I recognize my family's full of sensitives. I'm not the only one. So my cousin just randomly started talking about his writings, and I'm like, "What are you writing?" And he's just like, "Oh, I get these messages," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, is this a family thing? Are we a whole family?" I don't say Chandlers because they might like just run into the
Right.
church or something. Um, Let me not joke like that. But
No,
nonetheless,
no.
tying it all together and then building, my own I say spiritual knowledge, of dimensions, of the different realms. Then, like I said, accepting that this was a family gift, accepting, okay, not everyone can get into trance, or I call it a flow-like state.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay. So, this is real. And then as my own intuition has not just come online, but it's always the journey is trusting the voice,
Right.
knowing how to hear it, and then trusting it, and then working with it. Just can't put it into words. You have to give yourself time and patience. So now having, I say, that last tenant in place of, okay, I'm one who can sit down and just type and get information, but now it's another layer to it. Sometimes I can discern, oh, these are ascended masters, these are maybe angels, and it's different clues. It's not just because, I think, and that's something that I had to just stop forcing. Oh, who is this? Who is this? Because you get so excited, especially, if it is a loving message or if it is
Mhm.
coming from, ascended masters, which, let me just define those as, I don't know if it's debatable if they all were at least humans, but they have ascended. I mean, I guess I hate to use the term, the phrase to define it, but I guess they're helping light beings. Well, how
Yes,
would you
right.
define ascended masters? I'm trying to think of
So,
example like tarot.
Jesus, Buddha, Kuan Yin, I mean, I typically ascended masters. It's so funny, spirituality, right? Like once you start defining something, it almost like it still doesn't fully encapture everything. And so I will say, like, as you take this journey, if you're listening to like the different phrases and stuff that we're using, this we are neither of us, I think, nail our furniture to the floor. And so like I'm sure there's other beliefs out there, but like he was saying, ascended masters are basically beings who have ascended to the point where they no longer have to reincarnate. So they get off the karmic wheel
Yes.
and then they bestow, that wisdom, that knowledge, or healing sometimes to those of us who are still moving through our life cycles. So that's
Yeah.
my understanding. That's probably the best definition I've ever given of it, just like
You
off the cuff.
crushed it. Yeah, yeah. Because I like that part about they're done off the karmic cycle. Yeah, that ascended masters, that could be a future topic. That I had a couple of Dermy virtue decks, and I just could not quit that ascended masters, and now I know why. Like that's just a group. And I think also just to add in another variable is clearly it's not always communication with the typical line ancestors, spirit team, spirit guides. I do think that is, if you had to kind of think about, how we got those aura layers around our body, I think, okay, we have communication layers that we can tap into quicker. But definitely, back to, for me, when I look at levels of consciousness and realms, they're kind of on the same level, along with, vibration and frequency. That's kind of just like you can talk to someone all day, or you could try to train someone all day to go up to 12D, 11D, but it's just going to be hard. You got to work on the frequency. So anyway, long story short is, I started to recognize that I have this gift, it runs in the family, I'm able to get all these messages. I then in turn can either use my own intuition or supplement with Oracle. I find Oracle tarot not so much. I do, at least for me, I find sometimes the spirit team speaks a little bit more clearer with Oracle, but nonetheless, you can use cards, cartomancy, whatever you have around you, another person to kind of help you figure out, potentially who it is contacting you, more so at least get guidance on the message. Because I just go back to, I'm a computer person, and I know we just see our devices and the internet and connections and wires, but as above so below, the world is like that too. Some of us can see auras and energies, some of us can't, but we don't see the internet, we're connected and talking on it. And I just
Right.
say over and over, that's the whole concept of just like with this channeling thing, or some of us are wired, not some of, all of us are wired. It's a matter of turning on your wiring to just tap into the energy that is so flowing around us. So I think
Absolutely.
sometimes, yeah, I just wanted to explain that because I'm not, we're not here to sell people on spirituality or their journey, but I feel like channeling is such a bad rap. Like some people do have to do like different things or whatever type of, I just consider it ceremonial. I think that's objective from person to person, whatever people may have to do. And it can be, oh, they're acting like something on Hollywood, whatever. But 9 out of 10 channel messages I do believe have merit. It's just too much energy too much energy floating around. And some guys are literally just like on your ear, just waiting. Oh, I wish you can listen. I wish you can listen. I wish the person could hear. I mean, it's like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I would just kind of end it with this to take it away from just sitting down and like boom channeling and getting things. Our early way of channeling is definitely the intuitive messages we receive and giving readings, tarot, mediumship, whatever your jam is. And I just go back to the energy is out there, it's just waiting on someone to relay it to you. Is
Absolutely.
one thing that really cemented me in, okay, the spiritual stuff is, because you can always say, oh, it's for real, then you find out, oh, it's for real, for real. So the tarot DMV tarot meetup, just the meetup leader just sat down. He was so casual, I'm all just bopping around. He's like, oh, I have a message for you. And at the time that morning, I didn't, well, several things. I had a dream. My father passed over. My father passed when I was a little girl, but I had dreamed about his funeral. So I also
Oh,
didn't know at the time that means a visit. Didn't know. So just
yeah.
to just speed it up, what that person said to me was, he channeled a message that definitely I'm like, oh, only my father could have told me that. And then he's just like, your dad's so happy that y'all can now talk because he's been waiting
Oh,
to get through. So, I just bring bring all that into, I don't want to say full circle, full hearts. Actually, I think I'm wearing a heart. Oh, wait a minute. It's somewhere zoomed out.
there
Yes,
it is.
bring love into the channeling discussion. Um, so it really can be a beautiful thing. And just kind of having, I do think you do have to come into it with a certain belief system of, okay, this stuff is real and I'm going to try it out and form my own opinions.
What I
Yeah.
love about your story is the full circleness of it, the humanness aspect, and even the religious aspect. I mean, there are church uh, denominate not denominations. I think that's the right word. Where they,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
where they have apostles, and for all intents and purposes, those
Prophets.
apostles
Yeah.
are and prophets.
Yeah.
They're
I like
channeling.
that. Mm-hmm.
And so, there are people part of these denominations where that is their sole purpose is to bring through messages. So I believe this is something that is cross cultural. It's
Yep.
something that is also just part of the human biofield. We
Yep.
are here. I mean, if you look at most of our even our physical makeup, is absorbent. I mean, we have skin, but even that pulls things in, and more than anything, we pull in energy, and especially if you're an empath, you transmute
Yep.
that energy. And
Yep.
so your story allows for so much, your experience allows for so much normalcy around channeling, to go from the what is this, to okay, it's real, to wait, I've had this transcendent experience where a loved one came through someone else just to, reassure me, to encourage me that I am on
Validation.
that path. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. And I think if anybody were to catch this, the takeaway being, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you do have pockets of where you're in self-discovery mode. But what I loved about Key's story is she had people to kind of go with on this journey as well. So finding those spiritual communities, DMV Tarot is still going.
Yeah.
Key runs it.
Yeah.
So
That
um,
meetup has some legs. And you can find us. So dmvspirituality.com is the overarching website. We're on Meetup. That's the easiest way. DMV Tarot, just to follow. We meet a couple of times in person. I know people enjoy that. Calabash. New schedule once a month, Fridays. Tarot happy hour every third Friday. And then once a month at MLK Library for like some deep dive. We got tables, whiteboard. I was there yesterday teaching with my shoes off, Patty LaBelle style. Like, we're gonna learn some things. So excited to use that the library downtown. The renovation is beautiful and it's really good
mm.
conference and learning space.
It's a great space to practice in too. I got a chance to attend at least one meetup. I wanted to attend more, but I'm all over the place.
It's
And
a
it was the most supportive community. I mean, if you didn't have your own cards, there were like cards that could be used. And
yeah,
I think if you are trying to cross the bridge of not just reading for yourself, but kind of looking at the different things that can come through, like you were mentioning, you were like, well, you said, I want to quote you right. You said my oracle, or you said my guides tend to use more oracle cards, or work better with the oracle cards than the tarot. And I can definitely see why, because tarot is so fixed and oracle can be so dynamic depending on the deck. So I can 100% see why. And when you combine that with whatever is coming through message wise, and you're interacting with the frequency of different people, it really becomes like just this really opening and expansive experience. And Key and her group make a great they do a great job of creating safety and acceptance. So if you're trying to normalize your experience and get familiar with tarot cards or your own intuition in general, I mean, I don't think it just has to be tarot, but you just trying to get exposure to that intuitive side of yourself. DMB tarot is absolutely, it's really great. So
Thank you for that endorsement. And for sure, it's about community. Like I've been seeing. Clearly, we're all post COVID recovering, but I was surprised. I say this as a fake peoply person. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I was just surprised reading some articles about how they always top 10 things to live a life to be 100, and at the top of the list was community.
yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I think I get that. I know us who probably live in like niches and cool meetups and just kicking it with our people thrive in that. But I also can understand when people are just really looking for that community. So that's a huge thing I try to bring with DMV Tarot, with the transient nature of the area. People liking to work so hard. We just need a space to dialogue, to have a satsang, a spiritual discourse. So
Yeah, we'll try. You guys succeed. And in speaking of connection, I mean this definitely goes back to today's topic of channeling. Channeling is when you are connecting to something bigger than yourself oftentimes, or even just yourself. I found myself a couple months ago really wanting soul level answers, so I started trying to channel my higher self. And that might sound weird because it's like, well, that's a part of who you are, but I would say the vast majority of us don't walk in the vein of our higher self because I mean we live in a three-dimensional world. It would be relatively difficult to relate and get through some circumstances if you were always in that higher self space, and yet it's still so powerful to lend itself to our um, to pockets of our everyday experience. I think um, I'm not saying it's impossible to live in your higher self to the point where you don't have to channel it. But what I'm saying is, if you live in America, there may be some challenges around that, and you may find yourself. This isn't about always being in a higher state. I think the most human thing that anybody can do is to allow for the flow of what frequency do you need to be in at this time, at this place, as you interact with everything around you.
yeah.
And that's all about connection. We are our best selves when we are in connection with everything,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, like you said, with everything, ourselves, nature, planets, others, for
Yeah.
sure.
So sorry, I keep
Oh,
interrupting
sorry,
you. Go
no worries. I was just, before we, ramp down per se, like, could you talk a little bit about your discovery with channeling, excuse me, your channeling experiences, and how it felt. Just, I don't know how many voices or how many plethora of Indian channels you're tapped into. It's almost like a mic board. But
It
it
is.
can be overwhelming to people. So I'm just wondering, how did you adjust and how do you manage it? Because I also say this, like, I mean, it's such a it's a deprogramming to the deprogramming, even when you think you read this, because I'm also now just reevaluating psychic mediumship different. And I'm like,
Mm.
people think you got to walk around with your ears closed, like, oh my God, I can hear his thoughts, I can hear his grandmother's thoughts. And some people do have that level of, they have to do things to tap out. So I
Yeah.
just was kind of curious, I guess, just how loud or quiet is it for you, and how do you manage that?
That's a great question. So how loud or how quiet? It varies. I don't do crowds really well because it is loud, regardless. And this isn't about positive loud, negative loud, or anything like that. It's just loud. Most people come with 2 to 50 energies around them. And when you are, the only difference between me and working as an intuitive person and somebody who has like a 9 to 5 job is that because I do this every day, my sensitivities are a little a little more sensitive. And
Mm-hmm.
so management looks like making sure that I take time away. And I wouldn't say, I used to say turn things off, and that's really not what happens. It's more like turn the volume down. And
Yeah.
so time to myself is extremely important. And then within the last 2 years, one of the things that became integral to my turning that volume down was to work on my physical body. So
Mm-hmm.
not hitting the gym because I may be small, but I'm not a gym person. I respect people that can commit that way, and I love it when I go, but we have a very distant, fluid relationship.
I
But
get it.
as far as working on my body, I found myself uh, connecting with an occupational therapist who actually brought to my attention and awareness, and they continue to teach these practices, and hopefully I'll have them on here one day. But they go as far as to talk about our fascial structures in our body carrying light, sound, and liquid. And so you have this structure that covers our entire body and then goes down on smaller levels to cover our organs and things like that. And so in this work, we are connecting spirituality to the physical body to release stuck trauma, to release karmic blocks, to release our unhealed ancestors, to release things that if you were to take this spiritual journey and never address, your body would deteriorate and you might actually have some negative experiences. And I say
Mhm.
that to say, I believe that on some levels, people can unconsciously, treat their body or do energy work with certain individuals. And so your body is going to get treatment. And this isn't a scary story. But
Mhm.
I know that when it came to channeling and taking care of myself, I had hit a wall with energy. I have 6 or 7 energetic certifications. I did the gurus and the shamans, and I've had plethora of mentors. And there was always this place for energy to be balanced, healed, extracted. There's something always to do with energy. But when I really came back into this body, and I did a treatment before we hopped on here. So if I seem like really calm, that's why. It's
You
because
do actually. I was like, you're coming off because I was thinking, I was like, oh, what's up with your guys? I'm like, they got her feeling really grounded right now.
well,
I know.
I did
Mm-hmm.
a treatment on my spine. And
Mm,
and when you think about that, that's one of the first things that develops for us in this body. And so when you start to address that and you bring the spiritual principles into that, because I was also working with my Ida and Pangala energy, the two snakes that weave
mhm.
around the spine to
Yeah.
form those energy channels. I was working with that. So it was spiritual, it was physical, and now I'm here and I can be here more, I can do more, I have more bandwidth. And so
Yeah.
that's really what not to say, I mean, talking to you is always fun. I don't need bandwidth for that. But um, when you ask me, what am I doing? How am I caring for myself? That was the most pivotal thing was I learned everything that I could about energy and how to address it. Because sometimes you need to flow it in. Sometimes you
Yep.
need to cleanse. Sometimes you need to chant or do something because you need more. There's always more to do. And
Yeah.
yet, can you be in this physical vessel having this human experience? Is your body getting what it needs? And are you taking the time? And so the work is called the Embodiment Project, and that was really
Mhm.
pivotal for my self care and my ability to actually go further spiritually. I'm further along than I've ever been, and I'm
Mhm.
not looking back at my body and going, okay, well, oh well. I mean, mediums die sooner than most human beings, which is true. They
Mm,
they
I didn't
have
know.
their body starts to break down because they are between worlds.
Yeah.
But the question becomes if you were addressing that physical structure, how much longer could you go? How much higher could you go in the realms? So that's kind of my thing.
Yeah, no, talking about the self-care of the physical body, we've had side conversations. Like I said, I'm just to keep it simple, I'm recognizing, the energy it takes to wake up and do things for the 9 to 5 is different in the healing teaching arena.
Yeah, it
Um, yeah,
is.
and it's such a private way you got to figure out the algorithm or the formula to what does rest and reset look like. What does clearing your energy, what does, and back to the self-care question, man, until you really be like have hit like self-care isn't working, then you're figuring out self-care. I tell you this, the gotta go to the Shrek analogy, the onion layers.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I got these things figured out. No, but
No, you
it's joy. It's joy, and oh man, I thought, but no, now I think, and then 6 months later, you're gonna think more about what you're going through. But definitely taking care of the vessel is key,
yeah.
inside and out. From the meditation, I'm like almost let's keep my third eye, let's shine her all every hour, keep her fresh because, like you said, we're being back to this earthly 3D plane. We're being bombarded and we have to
Yeah.
constantly check in.
So it's a multi-layered approach, just like you were saying. I love Shrek. What came to mind was Donkey going through the parfait part. Like, I don't really like onions. I want parfait. I want my layers. But you're right, it's layered. And when I remember opening my crystal shop, I had a brick and mortar for
Mhm.
like 5 years, and getting in there and that layer, I was like, oh, I got this. I've got things figured out. And I was a baby again, trying to
Oh, I
figure
love
out.
that. Like going back through the birth canal several times.
Yeah,
Oh, grew
yeah.
up. Wait, we're
And
going
I
back.
would say, then there were little mini baby moments like, wait a minute, what this is a whole new technique. And it was only because I had a whole new kind of person, in my sphere of awareness, and then learning new boundaries and new self-care. Because I'll tell you, I mean, I'm a Virgo, I will work 24/7 if you let me.
Yeah,
But then learning, boundaries, and like you said, that mental piece is important
yeah,
too. So, no is a full sentence and all those things. So it's it's a journey worth relearning again and again and again. And I think if you find yourself getting set in certain methods of self-care, what you are going to find out is that it's not going to work one day. You're going to need to find something else.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And that's the joy of still discovering. Like, we get, especially like as sensitive people. That's some of the lessons that guys are helping me now with suggestions on him. We didn't even talk about that. Like, also, I'm sorry, let me just pop this
no,
bubble. Like,
please.
people thinking spiritual guys are like fluffy little Pokemon clouds. I don't know about y'all. My guys are tough. They demand discipline. This is more so definitely that ascended master realm. And I do feel like we're all on different paths. I feel like they're being tough on me because there's things I need to do. I don't even know why I mentioned this. Oh, talking about growth and
Because it's
self-care.
important.
Yes. And I guess that's my whole point is just so I say, yes, now I remember under the vein of not to say this is like military exercise when you're going through awakening, channeling, working with guys, but it is work. And I guess to me, like the 444 it could stand for angels. 4 is ultimately balance, law, and order, but also represents work. So that was my awakening code. So I think this conversation just makes me think back to, like I said, to put it all together, the guys, the channeling, and how they make me work.
Yeah,
But it's all for the greater good, and not just for myself, but
absolutely.
the greater good of the human state, the planet. But I think that's also, like I said, you'll find and over time, kind of just like the ebb and flows. Oh, this guy's here for a while,
Yeah.
and
And then they
I
leave.
feel like we went right back to the channeling. So back to channel books. So I feel like, all right, I can recognize when this person's around. All right, I'm pulling out some files. Let's keep working on these things. Then there's this other person that comes around. Let's pull out these files and work on these things. So I think to me it's just the dance of life, and that's anything. Like stagnation is only going to get you so far. So I feel like we're talking about, dancing from energies we're hearing in our head or around us, from figuring out how we got to pivot constantly in our self-care. And I'm just saying these things, you get it, I get it, but I feel like no one can really prepare you. You're going to
No.
have to go through it. Like we're speaking it, but you'll go through it and then you'll be like, oh, now I understand what those ladies we're talking about. Yeah, so it's just like to share the real stuff.
I love what you said about that. And it sounds like the work that you're putting in and the way that your guides are interacting with you also has so much to do with where you are on your path, right? Like had they come at you like this in the beginning, you'd have might have been like, oh, wait a minute. No thanks.
Yeah.
But you have gotten yourself to a place where you recognize, like it's almost like a symbiotic relationship, like you recognize their value and they see your potential and they're like, hey, listen, we're not going to let you slide backwards, which I don't actually think is a thing, but we're not going to let you kind of fall off too far from the path because we recognize what you are here to do. And they probably, I mean, everybody, if somebody says my guide is Archangel Michael, they are not the only person that can have Archangel Michael as a guide. These guides are working like double and triple time.
Yeah.
So that is to say, I think that our guides also know whose lives will touch, and they are really trying to encourage us to be our best selves, so that so that we can fulfill those connections. And I'm starting to, I don't know if you're coming into this awareness, but they are us. They are us in different dimensional planes. So who shows up for you? If it's Kuan Yin, you have qualities of compassion. You have qualities of, not ever leaving anybody behind, or maybe altruistic qualities to yourself. So our guides are us, and they want to see us evolve because they do so in the process. These are some things that I've come across.
Yeah.
But maybe a larger conversation on guides. So we've gotten in the channeling
Yeah.
and what comes through. Now let's
That's
talk
the fun
about
part. Who comes through? Yeah, we do have to say
right.
that for next. Who comes through? What they got to say,
Yeah.
and how they say it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Sternly, you're like, okay, you can cry for a little while.
yeah. Or my
But
husband
this,
gets this message 5 times every single day. Yeah,
yeah.
sure. They do it all.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. But this has been such an amazing conversation. I want to say first and foremost, like quality time is my first love language. So I appreciate
Oh, okay.
yours. And the fact that you got real vulnerable here. I mean, I think this conversation opens so many doors for people to not feel scared or, I mean, crazy, or
Yes.
any of those labels that kind of pull us away from who we are naturally.
Yep.
You've created a safe bubble, and for that I am truly grateful on this channel. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Thank
coming
you. Thank
out.
you, Dally. It's been a beautiful conversation. I hope everyone's enjoyed and can have some takeaways from our discussion.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, leave those comments. We'll come back to them, and we will catch you next time on Divine Dialogue. Have a great day,
All
everyone.
right. Take care, everyone.